First on the agenda is approval of, this is the RTM Parks and Recreation Committee regular meeting, February 9th, 2022. Approval of the minutes from January 12th. Do I have a motion to, are there any corrections to the minutes of January 12th? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the minutes? That's Diane approved and Kim seconded. Are there any no's? That's unanimous then. Okay. So the thing I added, you know, you got the redone agenda is this special appropriation that the selectmen voted on Monday night for special appropriation for $11,000 for the Bakerfield backstop. I think those of us that were on the parks tour, oh, where is it? Remember, I always lose my pieces of paper, guys. How come is that? Remember when we visited Baker, Pam telling us that there had some issues with errant balls going into the neighbor's yard, and they had put up netting to try to help that, and it helped, but it didn't take care of the problem, not near enough. So that's where this is coming from. So it's a new backstop that is wider and will be installed closer to home plate. And the 11,000 includes installation costs. We received a few quotes on this replacement and were recommended that this would help reduce the number of balls that enter the neighbor's yard. The neighbor understands that this is not 100% guaranteed, but we're confident it will greatly reduce the amount. I had asked the question of Pam Geary, and that was her response. I know Patty talked to the Little League folks. Have you gone? Are you there, Patty?
Yes.
Okay. Did you want to say anything?
I called Sean Ryan only because before I felt comfortable voting on it. I just wanted a little more due diligence on it. And because my kids had played there for years. And at that time, the backstop seemed fine. And so, but what he explained was that it had been an existing neighbor who had lived there forever and was fine with some of the balls going in. The house was recently sold not too long ago. A new neighbor, young kids, getting tons of letters like, oh, the ball almost killed my kid, you know, not killed, but it almost hit my child. It's an issue. And what I was trying to better find out was, you know, is it going into the backyard or into the front yard? Because the way a backstop being pushed up, I was trying to figure out why the netting didn't work. And what he explained to me, Sean Ryan, the president of Deer and Little League, said that unfortunately, he's had to reduce the number of kids playing on that field to only up to 3rd grade because 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th grade boys are bigger and they can hit the balls so it could go up and over the backstop, which I get that now as well because I remember with my kids doing that. And they can also, it would hit a foul ball and extend to the right into the yard. So he explained that a lot of the balls with these stronger kids now are even hitting the cars that are parked right up against that area behind the backstop. And then I asked him how old it was, and he said it was built in the 1960s. So it's 60 years old. So I know what that backstop looked like, and I asked him to just send me some photos. He had gone up to 2 different towns and looked at newer backstops, and they are much more complete all the way around. They extend all the way over, much more over the front. It's also still safe for the, you know, the catcher in the back who's catching it for it to come down. It's not going to hurt him. It gives a lot more space. And so I felt like it was a safety issue, quite frankly, from the neighbor standpoint, from cars, and from everybody around. So I personally would vote to support it. Thank you.
Are there any questions from anybody? It's a special appropriation so that they will, instead of, she didn't put it, it wasn't put in the budget because if it had been put in the budget, the funds wouldn't be available until after, July 1st. So that's not really so helpful for the baseball. So
Little League
it's
starts
a
in April.
special appropriation that comes to, goes to the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and then we'll come to the RTM. So that's why we're involved. And I'd like a motion to approve the special appropriation for $11,000 for the Bakerfield backstop.
I would make it.
Chris and Sandy. Are there any no's? In that case, it's approved unanimously. Thanks, everybody. That's good. Next on the agenda is a sort of a update on the Park and Rec operating budget and capital request. The Board of Selectmen voted Monday night. You all got the adjustments to the operating budget that the town administrator her cuts before it went to the Board of Selectmen. So are there any questions on those? It was the largest one was to the grounds and fields and buildings, the groundskeeping services, where the commission had requested $40,000 for all parks, for plantings in all parks. And it was cut by 22,000 with the idea that they could run a pilot project, or anyway, just less money, and it was up to them how they spread it around. I asked, I had a couple questions from people, so I asked Pam about the $40,000, but about the reductions. And what I asked her was, is this where plantings or landscaping at Pear Tree would come from? And the answer was yes, but keep in mind the $40,000 was for 5 parks. With this cut, this leaves $3,000 per park, or the commission can decide how they want to spend the $18,000 at which parks. So that's the answer to that question that I can't remember who asked me, but somebody asked me that. And the other question I was asked on the operating budget was about the cosmetic repairs to Pear Tree. Would they be covered where would they be covered in the budget? And it's under grounds and fields and buildings, and it's the facilities repair and maintenance budget line. Yes, that's cosmetic repairs such as new sinks and hardware would be taken out of that line. So that's all the information I have on the operating. The selectmen did not change the operating. There were tweaks. The town administrator tweaked here and there, but the selectmen didn't change anything. Any questions on the operating?
So Adele, at the bottom, facility maintenance and materials, $44,000. That was a 3.53 increase. And it says in organic material fees for Casey Field at Cherry Lawn and Highland. Is
Right.
that 44,000 you're saying, which included Pear Tree?
No, I don't think so. But I'd have to have the open gov in front of my face. It's what okay, for the plantings, I believe would come out of that 40 that I was talking about, that is in the under groundskeeping services.
Okay, that's up here.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty. Anybody else?
Adele,
Uh-huh.
the amount reduced for plantings, is that just an idea, suggestion at this point, or is that the way it's going to be?
That's what it is going forward, yes. That's what the town administrator recommended, and the Board of Selectmen accepted the town administrator's recommendations.
because I thought maybe people didn't understand that there were so many new plantings this year, and to say we'll have a pilot project at one of the parks, or two of the parks, is illogical. You know, you need to put money in now while the plants are newer. Maybe you won't need as much in the following year.
Right. Well, it is what it is. And I do remember the commission's discussion that it was much small. I think it was a smaller number and they increased the number. So it's just as well they increased it since it got cut back down to a smaller number. But anyway, they got something. So I guess, anyway, that's my thinking on it. But yes, that's what the number is going forward.
Okay.
Then we'll move on to capital. There wasn't much, well, there was a change in capital, but from the original, from the original request, the town administrator removed the Woodland Park parking, and she removed the installation of the swing set at Baker. And well, she didn't. The parking was deferred a year at Woodland. She didn't remove it completely. She just deferred it a year. So when the Board of Selectmen reviewed it, they talked about the parking, but they didn't. They decided not to put it back in. But they did put back in the installation of the swing set. But they also removed the Weed Beach Meadow Parks and Trail project for $1,900,000 was removed by the selectmen. So
to be fair, it wasn't removed, right? It was also deferred for a special project to be reviewed later. There were a number of questions, I think, that were unanswered at the time. And so the request was to come back with more information to potentially look at it as a special project and, if needed, bonded.
Well, yes, but the way it's in the adjustments for the Board of Selectmen is that it's removed. It does.
It's still possible, but it's still possible this year.
What they said was we need additional information before proceeding. Yes, but it's not in this. But it's not in the budget. Okay, we'll just put it that way. Yeah, it's not like it's dead, but it's not part of the budget.
Yep.
Okay. And that is it for the budget for me. Anybody else? Any other comments? But that's a good point, Chris.
So they
remind
said
people
they did put
dead.
Oh, sorry. I just want to make sure you said they did put the swing set back in.
They did, which is, I thought, wise.
Definitely.
Yeah. So next it goes to the Board of Finance, and I don't have the dates in front of me, but I've given them to you before, I do believe. And it's a little break here, and then the Board of Finance will start. I'll send you the reminders of the dates from when I know when they're going to review it as well. I will let you know. Okay. Next on our actually, I thought maybe right now would be a good time to mention the ARPA meeting, Patty, since it kind of relates to the capital projects. The ARPA meeting this week, where they were discussing, there's this committee that's been set up to discuss how the funds are going to be utilized, and there was a discussion. I mean, Parks and Rec was mentioned in the list of possibilities of things that they were going to put money into. It sounded like primary was infrastructure, and it sounded like a second important thing that they were thinking of is to giving a little relief to this year's budget, because right now it's sitting at a pretty high increase, higher than they would like it to be. So you want to add anything? Anybody else? I know Patty watched the ARPA meeting, and I don't know if anybody else did or not. Anybody want to make any comments?
I'll just say for the, if you haven't, there's a lot of meetings to follow at this time of year with budgets. But with regards to ARPA, a quick overview, there's 3 different sections for ARPA. There's infrastructure, there's miscellaneous, and then there's basically like the businesses that had lost revenue in town. And so there are working groups for each one of those 3 sections. It would appear that the largest percentage of the monies will go towards infrastructure, flood mitigation, sewer projects. That seems to be a big, it's a big priority coming down from the top is what we're taking away. Miscellaneous, things under miscellaneous is broadband, but with broadband, that's really if you're more rural or if you're in a town without a lot of means and kids don't have the broadband width to have the internet. That's not really a Darien thing. So I don't know that much money will go to that particular section. And then they're looking at the business section. So they have to really figure out how they will consider that. That's a hard thing. Like, do you give money to every business or restaurant in town? Do you just give it to, and do you give a flat rate or not? I'm quite happy I'm not on that ARPA committee to make that decision. But they, from what we're hearing, Parks and Rec per se would not fall under infrastructure. If it was to fall in an area, it would fall under miscellaneous. It would be nice to get some money there, but it might be a long shot. So I would say there's a lot of focus on flood mitigation.
Yeah, it makes good sense. But nice to be mentioned. But it was very nice that Martha Banks mentioned that how heavily the parks were used, really due to COVID, particularly so, and that they, she was looking for a little support for them. So I thank you, Martha. Thank you, Martha. Okay. Oh, and the other thing about budget, I did want to say, remember I asked people for who would be interested in working on budget, sort of like a working group working with the F&B. And I only heard from Cheryl. I assume that Patty, were you interested in working with the F&B folks on budget as well, or is there anyone else who's interested in doing that? Because I got a email from Jenny Schwartz this week saying that she and Barry Baldwin are F&Bs, are the people assigned to Parks and Rec, and would be a good idea if we got the 2 groups got together and before the Board of Finance really got into the budget. So
my only question on that, Adele, is that I know Jack started that when we were remote. And so I don't know, I mean, the selectmen meeting, they did have those in person. I don't know if other people were in the audience besides like Pam and Ed Gentile. So I don't know how the Board of Finance are going to be in person as well. So I don't know your thoughts on the importance of still working. I think it's good for us to pre-sell F&B, if that's your question.
I think that it's to our benefit to continue to talk to F&B. They have questions, and sometimes we can answer them probably better than a little more simply before they get wound up and go to the Board of Finance about it. So, but yeah, they are still interested in talking to us. So at any time I think somebody's interested in talking to us, it'd probably be a good idea if we talk to them. I was kind of hoping that the Board of Finance would manage to have a Zoom link along with their in-person meetings, but all we can do is encourage. Never mind. Cheryl, so I'll be in touch. I don't know. Okay. Do you have an answer, Patty? Did you want to join in or no?
Sure, I'll help. And you can talk to the chair of the Board of Finance and ask him for a Zoom link if they're going to do that. I don't know that they're going to do that.
Yeah, I know. It's a good idea to try. I will do that. Anybody else? No? Okay, well then we'll move on. All right. Next on our agenda is Pear Tree Beach, because there seems to be several meetings even this week where things are sort of happening. First one was on Monday evening, where and I think a lot of us were on that call or on that Zoom, which is great, by the way. I think we were more of us than there were of them. For the commission's meeting with joint meeting with the Coastal Advisory Group. So I asked Cheryl if she would sort of give us some highlights for those of us that were not able to listen in or watch. Cheryl?
Thanks, Adele. Good evening, everybody. It was an interesting meeting, but it wasn't, I thought there'd be more accomplished, let's put it that way, but I think this is going to be a time-induced working committee with the Harbor Advisory Commission and the Darien Boat Club. So the bottom line is that we took 15 samplings were taken, and around the boat club, they said it would be about 2,800 to 300 cubic yards from the boat ramp. And the cost is around 150 to 300 a ton. Lori worked with Dan over the years and worked on the park and said that the parking lot and the boat ramp were used quite a bit, and the boat ramp does need to be fixed, as I think we all agree over the years. We've all discussed this numerous times. So Lori and Dan Biggs from Weston and Sampson were on, and he gave a really good update on it and showed the map of where the samplings were taken all the way around to the other side of Goodwise River. And then, so they all agreed that the samplings were good on some places, and some places they weren't, and they weren't around the boat ramp. So the boat ramp would have the disposal site for the boat ramp. What do you call it? Oh, I can't think of the word.
What, the dredging, whatever they dredged up anyway. Yeah. I don't know what you call it either. No idea.
It's old age. The dredging around the boat ramp would have to be taken by truck, and it would be to Pennsylvania or New Jersey as of now. Can't be dumped in Long Island Sound like the rest of it. So that's going to up the cost of doing the boat ramp. So I didn't write down the, I think it was FGH, I think it was, the sampling area around the boat ramp over to Goodwise River. And that, they said, would be, let me see. Anyways, it would be about 1,700 cubic square feet. And with the off-site costs and everything, could be around $400,000 to $700,000. So it's a lot of money, and we don't even know what the boat ramp's going to cost yet. So the bottom line was the boat club said that they would have to go back and talk to people at the boat club and see what they could come up with and what part of the dredging they would be involved in. So that's basically the crux of the whole thing. It's going to be a while. We still have our application with the Army Corps of Engineers and are waiting for them to get back to us with the permits, which I was hoping it was going to be last year, but now it looks like it still could be another 6 months. So that's about it. Until we get that, then we won't know which way we're going on all of this. That's for the parking lot, the boat ramp, the dredging, and the picnic area at Pear Tree. Any questions?
Yeah, I was just wondering, because I wasn't part of this discussion earlier, but I was on the call on Monday, and about the cost range from 400 to 700,000. It seems like just such a large range. And I asked the question, and the response was that, the factors involved are how efficiently they take the contaminants away that are dredged, whether you fill a truck or you have a partially filled truck, and certainly that makes sense. You know, how productive are you in the hauling? But it seemed like there should have been more factors involved in changing that price range, because, you know, it's almost double. You know, it could cost up to $700,000 for the same amount of contaminants. So I have to imagine that there's more involved in doing it as efficiently as possible. But was there any of this discussion before on Monday night? Because I'm sort of playing catch up here, and I don't want to ask questions that are redundant. But does anybody else have any thoughts on that whole cost issue?
Well, Kim, I think I don't think anybody wants to be pinned down and say it's going to cost us $400,000. Then when we go out to bid, it's $850. You know what I'm saying? And everybody hits the ceiling. So I think what they're doing now is, because everything, as we all know, has gone through the ceiling, what this is going to cost us, and especially if we have to truck it to another state.
So this hasn't been put out to bid. Is that what you're saying?
No,
nothing.
no.
I was under the impression that was the bid, that the bid was
No.
400 to 700.
No. This is just a guesstimate from Dan Biggs of Weston and Sampson. He's giving us these figures, and he's saying, you know, by talking to people, I guess at this point, how much would it be to offsite so many cubic feet? Now we could get in there and it may not be the amount of cubic feet. It may be less, it may be more. We may work with the boat club, and we may go farther out, and the boat club will pay for that, or pay a percent. You know, there's a lot of variables here. So no, it hasn't gone out to bid because we don't have the permits yet.
And what are the factors involved in getting the permits? I mean, in terms of why it's being delayed and so forth.
Well, the building committee was put on hold when the COVID hit.
Right.
And we haven't had a meeting since. And the Army Corps of Engineers and the DEP basically, I guess, shut down. There's no other word for all this stuff that's been going on. And they have been backlogged. So
Okay.
according to Dan, he has kept us abreast of all the stuff that he's been doing and how long it's been taking, and how long. Believe me, I'm the first to say this has gone on long enough. And I wanted to shovel in the ground a year and a half ago, but that didn't work. So I think that, I mean, I can't speak for the Army Corps of Engineers, and we had to do more samplings. They requested more samplings than what we had done in the first place. So that had to be done. And so we're on hold until
but now they are, you know, the permitting process will move forward. It just depends on how fast they do it. We have the information they need. We may not like what the information is, but we have the information they need. So when that's done, then it goes to deep, and then we wait for what they have to say, whether we yay or nay.
Great, thank you.
Okie doke. Sarah, you got to unmute yourself, honey.
Yeah. Hi, sorry. So obviously I know we've got a ways to go, it sounds like, but I vaguely remember when before COVID hit and those beautiful plans were put, you know, forward, and I know there was a big hubbub against it, and the people who live there don't want it happening, or at least that's how it felt. But so with all this work being, you know, trying to get done to get us to the place so that we can do this, how much are the neighbors hearing about this? Or do we know, are we hearing anyone saying that, like, 'cause I can't imagine them being super excited about truckloads going down their cute little windy road that everyone loves to walk. I just like, I don't know, just like, is all this work getting done, and can the neighbors, like, are they going to be able to halt it and just say, no, we're not going to let this happen?
Well, you know what? I think if it's it'll be money, and the whole town will have to decide whether they want to pay the money or not. So I mean, that's when, you know, that's when it might. The neighbors, but the neighbors seem to be pretty. I mean, I don't know if they were on the call or not. I didn't pay attention, to tell you the truth, but they seem to be pretty savvy and stay abreast.
Yeah. Okay.
I haven't
Got it.
heard anything from the neighbors. This has been going on for a while about the parking lot and the boat ramp. And I think some of those neighbors belong to the boat club. So I think they're in favor of this project, and it's not going to take place in the summer. It's going to be in after October, would have to be after the boats are removed from the boat club and the ramp is, and the boat club is empty and the ramp is ready to be renovated. So it would be done in off season, but you know, maybe the trucks would have to go up and around on Long Neck Point Road and come in on Pear Tree, and you know, we might have to figure that out.
Any other questions? Okay, well, that was the first meeting this week. And then the second meeting was the commission's working group last night, which quite a few of you all are participated in, the Pear Tree portion of the working groups. And so I asked Patty if she'd give a quick explanation for those of us who aren't on the committee or are not part of the working group, and just tell us what the sort of the parameters are and where they're at. Patty, there you go.
Yeah. I'm going to be pretty general with this because a lot of you were on this. And for those that you weren't, it's the first meeting. And so I'm going to read to you what the purpose of the Pear Tree Point Working Group's theme, so to speak, is. The purpose of the Pear Tree Working Group is to make recommendations to the Park and Rec Commission on a proposed course of action at Pear Tree by summarizing the pros and cons of the alternative approaches of each component of the project, and ideally reaching consensus on the preferred course of action. And then also the working group is committed to a process that begins with determining town preferences and priorities through comprehensive and inclusive research. And so the other thing that I will add is that it was a pretty productive conversation. There were 10 of us there. Basically, you know, 9 out of 10 were there. And I know, Chris, you were coming in late from a meeting, but then Chris was able to stay for another half an hour and really at least half an hour and get caught up on everything. And it, so without going into great detail, because again, it was just the first meeting, some of the things we talked about was the chair of the working group asked everyone to go around and give the focus. We started with the focus on the building, so not focused on the boat ramp, because obviously we were just getting information on that on Monday, and we're still going to have to wait to hear more from Deep. And we're waiting to hear more on the parking lot. So she decided the first thing for us to discuss was on the building. She went around and she asked all of us to give basically some pros and cons of what our takeaway was on I guess, the last existing design of the plan that Neil Huck had done. So people went around and discussed that, and you know, really tried to zero in on what we thought from feedback across town, what people would like to see the most of, what are the priorities, what's a nice to have, what's a need to have. There was also a fair amount of discussion around a concession stand. You know, as you know, if you've been on this committee for a while, our concession stands, particularly at Pear Tree, don't make any money. It's difficult for the vendors. Weed Beach seems to make some money, but Pear Tree has lost it, you know, for several years through Uncle's Deli, and then through, it was very frustrating for the newer vendor as well. And so, and that newer vendor was not always open as a result. And so that gave some conflict to folks down at the beach. So there was a pretty wide-ranging discussion as to, is there really even a need to be having a concession down there? One of the folks on on the working group suggested that one of the things that might come out of this is that Weed Beach is the place to go if you do want to have concessions. On that particular day, if you're taking your kids down, you don't want to make lunch, you go to Weed Beach because you know there's food there, versus almost marketing it to people as Pear Tree Point does not have a concession. That's the place you want to bring your own food or bring your, steaks because there's grills or burgers and wine and cheese at the end of the day on a Friday. I know, Chris Taylor, you talked about that at the end of the day. You and a group of people have done that during the summer. And so so that was kind of an overview. There was also talk about how so many people order Uber and DoorDash these days that, if this concession at Pear Tree is not making money, is there really alternative ways that people are getting food to the beach anyways, besides bringing it themselves? And then the other discussion was on food trucks. And although at present food trucks aren't zoned down there, as we know, we can go to P&Z and you can always ask for a special permit, like we did at the Rocktoberfest at Highland, where we did indeed have 4 food trucks down there. And for any of you guys who've been down to Pear Tree in the last 2 years during COVID, when that ice cream truck came down there, it was Pied Pipers. All the kids were there getting the ice cream. So that's kind of, I would say, the biggest overview. We talked about, is it possible to build some porch or docking space, for lack of a better word, not docking from a boat standpoint, decking. If you've been to the Pear Tree, if you've been to the boat club down at Pear Tree, after Hurricane Sandy, they rebuilt the deck down there. The deck. And they've done a really nice job. There's 4 or 5 picnic tables in a row, and there's a circular table that has 4 or 5 Adirondack chairs that families love to go down and sit around there throughout the day. And so there's talk about, is there ability to do that and add kind of more seating, Adirondacks chairs, more trees for shading, even potentially umbrellas. And so that was just the general overview. And then there is a discussion about doing a survey with some very specific questions to find out what the needs are. We felt like it was important to reach out to a wide variety of stakeholders in town. People who have lived here for a long time, newer families that are coming in. I brought up the fact that there's going to be 400 new units with apartments, which are 1 and 2 bedrooms coming in. And those aren't folks that do have a backyard or a pool that they can go to. So they will be going down to Pear Tree. So we really want to enhance that and make that park look as good as it can. And the big emphasis, as Cheryl will attest to, is the bathrooms. Everyone said the number 1 priority they hear across town is we have to improve the bathrooms in there. So not everybody was on board with doing a survey, but I think there was a feeling that it was a good time to go back and revisit and get feedback from across stakeholders across town. And so what we've agreed to do is meet every other week for the next few weeks as we are ramping up. And so we're going to be meeting again on Tuesday, the 22nd, and then we'll be meeting again on March 1st. And then we'll have updates. That's it. Thank you.
Is anybody else? I know that there are other members that were on of our working group that are here. Does anybody else want to comment?
Yes. I was really surprised about the general consensus is that the 2-story building is just not viable.
Yeah, that was a consensus. That was a consensus across the board. And so people felt that they'd rather see improvements to the existing area. And that's what I was saying, trying to maybe extend out decking in front of the building. So There was not a strong push for going up.
No, there's no push at all.
Correct.
Sorry, Patty, was there a push for just a new building or just actually trying to make what they currently have now just as good as it can get? What was the?
Well, go ahead, Vince.
Yeah, as good as we can get, as good as we can do within the limitations of not having to make a two-story building. In other words, there's a limit. There's a limit. Hopefully, we can pass off most of the cost of maintenance, and that wouldn't be as part of the limit. But to do the best we can without having to go 2 stories up.
There was a
What Vincent's referring to is that you can only, because of insurance purposes, you can only spend a certain percentage of what the building is assessed at. I think it's only half, and so that's a finite amount of money that you've got there. You know, you can't just renovate to the Taj Mahal. You've only got a finite amount of money that you can spend you've got a 5-year window. So anyway, it's complicated. It's complicated. So.
It's 3 years. You can spend $96,000. Right. Then 3 years, you've got to wait. Then $96,000 in 3 years, you've got to wait. I mean,
right, so that's only on an existing building. If you knock down and build to flood
you got to go up. If you go up, you knock it down, you have to go up. That's what the problem is.
Oh, when you say 2 stories, you mean that meaning 2 stories, because what I remember is when everyone was so against the second floor being like the rental area and like, why do we need more rental space? I didn't think it was the fact that they were raising the building that was one of the big issues. That was what a lot of people didn't like.
I think a lot of people didn't like it going up, period. Yeah.
And the other thing, and Cheryl will attest to this, you know, when that discussion came, and then, you know, if we're going to spend all this money on a concession stand and it's in a wet area, obviously we see how much it floods there. Then there was a proposal by someone to move it up and put it on a second floor. And then that's how we got to the first design from Neil Huck was all of those ramps that went all the way up, right? And then the second discussion, when they got pushed back on that, was an elevator, which everyone in the working group was a flat out no across the board, because we know that at the train station where it's not even next to the water, that's broken often. We know at the Darien High School where Sandy works, and she can attest to that, elevator is often broken. And so, you know, it like, to me, there were some things that I liked the design of how Neil Huck was doing the new bathrooms, right? There were a lot of things I did like on the lower floor, but for me, it was a dead stop on the elevator, you know, going up. That made no sense. And so that's just, again, this is just a start. You know, the Pear Tree Beach Building Committee, you know, has been put on hold for the time being. But what Lori Bora from the Parks and Rec Commission did was she just wanted to, you know, she wanted to see how we could get this restarted after a few years, go out, get some more information, have some folks, you know, do some more deep diving into it and come back and recommend to their commission some ideas. And obviously, as everybody is welcome to give their feedback to the working group and to the commission.
Anybody else with a question or comment?
I just want to go back to Sarah where we said we had to go up. The last drawing that was done in a figure, and it was down in the town hall. That's what we were discussing, that design. And that was the one that was in the library and everything. The bottom floor was going to be opened, and the concession stand was going to be moved upstairs with an overview of an area with glass sliding doors. I'm going back 2 years, so my memory's got to get this back right. And have all of that upstairs, and then the elevator and the ramp with, you know, going around and all of that. So the building itself, the bottom of the building was going to be where it is. If we were to knock the building down and redo this whole thing, we have to raise the bottom floor up 15 feet, I believe it was.
17, yeah, 17.
15, 17 feet. Someone asked last night, I believe it was Patty, if we had thought of moving the building over to where the picnic area is. And we'd have to still raise it up in that area. So one thing I didn't say last night, which I will clarify at our next meeting, is one of the reasons we didn't proceed with that thought was the noise, the smell, and everything going so close to the neighbors. But also we discussed the children and to get back to the back beach or to get up to the gazebo, either they walk along the sand or they would be going through the parking lot. So that was out because we didn't feel that was safe either. So we had talked about a lot of things during the working building committee. And I think that Neil Huck, as Patty said last night, did a fantastic job. He was really in a hard place to come up with something. There was a renovation drawing. I have to dig it out. I brought it with me. And I'll look at that and see what that was going to cost us. But last night, I came away with the fact that this group really talked about not having a concession now, and maybe making the concession into a better building inside. And we talked about the electricity in the concession stand not being up to par. We talked about that when we went through it in October. And I think that that could be a maintenance situation. So if we continue with a concession stand, we're going to have to fix the electricity in there. But the survey is going to be, I think we talked about it. We haven't come to any conclusions, but we talked about just asking the people on this that we send the survey to just discuss Pear Tree, not Weed Beach, because what you have at Weed Beach, you're not going to get at Pear Tree. And if you want a concession stand, what kind of food would you want? How many days a week do you want it open? Other things, things like that we have to go through, the committee has to go through and come up with the appropriate questions. We want to make sure that the people that are responding actually do use Pear Tree. I mean, if they're over at Weed and they're telling us what they want at Pear Tree, that's not an accurate survey. So we have to go through this. We're going to meet twice a month. We hope to wrap it up by May.
Okay. All right then. Well, I think that's it for Pear Tree for now. I'm sure we'll talk about it again.
Sure.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think next on our agenda is my chairman's report. I don't have much. I do want to say that for the working groups, we have a lot of people that were interested in Pear. 3, 4, 5, a lot. And then for weed and the invasives and the playground, for the playground, Sarah had said she'd be interested in that, which is terrific. And Chris had given me a couple of possibilities of what he'd like to do, but it would be really great if most of us, if it's possible. If it's not, then no. But to be on one of these working groups. And right now, just Patty has volunteered for the invasives, and for the playground, Sarah, and then Chris is gonna, and then weed is Patty and I, and perhaps Chris. But everybody get back. Chris, I don't put you on the spot. You don't have to tell me which one you want right now. But everybody, so let me know what you would like to do. Okay. And the other thing that I'd say that I would mention at the last commission meeting, if you weren't there, or that they did every January, they review their fees. And a couple years ago, the beach permits were, the fees were increased. And so this year, they suggested to increase the boat launch daily fee and the boat launch permit, each by $5, I believe. And also the community garden fee, which is at $15, they increased to $20. So that was what happened with the fees. Any questions or comments? Okay. Then I will move on to
Adele,
other business. Is there other business? Yes, Sheila?
I just wanted to comment. I listened to that about there is such a long waiting list to have gardens at Cherry Lawn, and I don't know that area well. I wondered if it's feasible to expand that area so more people can take part.
Cheryl, I know that several people, including a friend of mine who's got a garden right in the front when you walk in. She's like 2 gardens over from the front. She facing the front. Every year, she offers up half her garden plot to somebody who is who's on the wait list or hasn't made the wait list, but wants to try it out. So if you know Dorothy Shigalis, I don't know if you're personally interested or if you know people that are interested, I would have them contact Dorothy Shigalis, who runs all the garden plots, because I think there's opportunities, because sometimes people suddenly find they're gone all summer, and they have rules. Like if you're not maintaining it, they'll toss you out. And so if somebody knows they're going to be gone for a while, they might love to have a partner in the garden to split it with. So just an idea. But I don't think there's any area to expand it, to answer you, no, because it's right between the baseball field and the basketball court, so there's no space.
Yeah, the basketball court does now bump up pretty tight against it, but that doesn't mean there isn't another part of Cherry Lawn where that wouldn't be possible. But it's worth asking the question, and we'll do that. Any other business, guys?
One other thing, I don't know if it was the same meeting where I heard it, but somebody spoke up saying the area at the beach where the dogs are allowed to go is where the shells collect. And her dog and someone else's dog had cut their paws there. And she was asking if that area could be expanded maybe 20 feet toward the regular beach. I went over there today and had a look, and it really is full of cracked shells. And there's room to go to the right as you face the sound and still not be in the beach area that's used for swimming. So I didn't know what they were going to do with that comment that was made at the beginning, or should we try to do something?
And that was actually me commenting.
Okay, then
On behalf of many dog owners that I know that have had the same issue. And I didn't, there wasn't any resolution. It seemed like it was going to get couched at a later time. I would love it if we could bring it up somehow again.
Okey-doke. Anything else? Okay. Well, that was a very efficient meeting. We'll take on a motion to adjourn, and we'll see you next month. I saw hands, Alyssa and Cheryl. All those in favor? Never mind. I don't mean to say that. Anybody that's against? Anybody that knows? Any knows? That's unanimous. Okay, guys. See you next month.
Thank you. Happy